NM. आपने सुना होगा ना अक्सर ऐसा 4nm, 5nm, 3nm. What is this NM if I were to tell you? Well, पता है क्या है? यहाँ पे NM is a nanometer. It's basically a unit of length. ये होता है 1 मीटर का 1 billionth. जी हाँ, 1 billionth. और यहाँ पे I mean the smaller is better because all these companies, all these chip manufacturing companies, they are trying to squeeze in as many transistors as possible कि कैसे एक छोटी सी चिप में वो इतने ज़्यादा ट्रांजिस्टर्स को पैक कर दें which essentially act like a switch to make sure that the performance goes right through the roof. Because आप समझ लीजिए कि इसमें
Very good morning. You're watching World 24/7. We have a whole lot lined up for you, including an Indian that has died in Italy. He was left to die by his employer on the street. So, well, the Prime Minister has called it an inhuman act. We'll get you all the details. But first, the headlines. Julian Assange back home in Australia after a plea deal. Assange is back home with his family in Australia's Canberra after a legal battle that lasted 14 years. What's next for Assange is the big question. Indian farm worker dies in Italy. 32-year-old Satnam Singh left to die on the streets by his employer. India demands prompt action while Italian Prime Minister calls it an inhuman act. And it's going to be Donald Trump and Joe Biden that are going to be facing off in the first televised election debate that's going to be taking place since 2020. Key issues that could come up during that 90-minute debate could include immigration, abortion rights and inflation. And Sri Lanka reaches a deal on debt restructuring. Sunita Williams is stuck in space for the last 2 weeks and only 27 days of fuel is left on the ISS. Let's get your top story, and that's Julian Assange, who landed back home in Australia's Canberra after a plea deal that allowed him to walk free from a London prison. There were emotional scenes as far as the airport at Canberra is concerned, as the WikiLeaks founder kissed his wife and hugged his father. His lawyers watching on, visibly quite moved there. Of course, we were expecting the leader of Australia, Anthony Albanese, to be at the airport as well, but he did speak to him over the phone. Julian needs time to recover, is what the family is saying. His wife is saying that he has to get used to freedom. That's what she said shortly after her husband arrived. Now, for the past 14 years, Julian Assange has been in a legal battle with the United States officials who accuse him of leaking classified documents, which they say put lives in danger.
It took millions of people. It took people working behind the scenes, people protesting on the streets for days and weeks and months and years. And we achieved it. Julian wanted me to sincerely thank everyone. He wanted to be here. But you have to understand what he's been through. He needs time. He needs to recuperate. And this is a process. I ask you, please, to give us space, to give us privacy, to find our place, to let our family be a family before he can speak again at a time of his choosing.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, who led a life leaking classified government information and fiercely campaigning for freedom of speech, has a different ballgame to face now. Assange owes more than $500,000 to the Australian government for the charter flight to Mariana Islands, a US territory in the Pacific Ocean, and onward to Australia. Assange had opposed travelling to the mainland US for the sentencing in the high-profile espionage case and chosen Mariana Islands for its proximity to his native Australia. Julian's wife Stella had started a crowdfunding campaign to cover the costs. She has also issued an appeal seeking donations for Assange's health recovery. According to Stella, Julian's health is in dire need of recovery. The campaign seems to be doing well. Assange was isolated for more than a decade as he spent time holed up in the Ecuadorean embassy in the UK, and then for years in a small cell in a maximum security British prison. Isolation often means less fresh air and sunlight, both crucial for good health. Poor ventilation can lead to respiratory problems. Lack of sunlight can cause vitamin D deficiency, weaken bones and immune system. Assange suffered a mini stroke in 2021 and a broken rib from persistent coughing. While Assange's release came as a surprise to most, his family is pumped up to welcome him.
Having Julian home to an ordinary life after 15 years of incarceration in one form or another, house arrest, jail and asylum in an embassy, is pretty good news.
Assange has told his brother Gabriel Shipton that he can't wait to go for a swim in the ocean.
Yeah, I've been speaking to him this week and just going through all the details with him, and very anxious, very excited, and he's looking forward to spending time with his family and being free, being able to have the sunshine on his face, hear the birds, go for a swim in the ocean back in Australia. So he's very much looking forward to that.
The release has garnered reactions from across the world. Legendary musician and former Pink Floyd frontman Roger Waters said that Assange had sacrificed himself.
Good on you, Julian. Good on you, mate. And thank you for the huge sacrifice you made for the rest of us.
Though Assange has enjoyed constant support, few can match Stella's contribution. She continues to fight for her husband's survival. The pair had got married in 2022 while Assange was in the Belmarsh High Security Prison in London. Assange will start a new life now, far from the secretive world of classified government information and whistleblowers. And the whole world will watch as he decides what to do with the rest of his life. With Vishal Vivek, NDTV Bureau Report.
Switching tracks now, India on Wednesday asked Italy to take prompt action against those responsible for the death of a 31-year-old Indian farm worker, Satnam Singh, who died after he was dumped on the road without medical assistance by his employer after his arm was severed by heavy farm machinery. Italian Prime Minister Meloni has paid a tribute to the Indian farm worker. She brought up the issue in the Italian parliament and offered condolences to Satnam Singh, the worker who died. She also called it an inhuman act. Now, in India, they're asking for a prompt action to be taken against the employer. We have my colleague Ghazali joining us to get us more on this. Ghazali, who was the employer? Why was there no medical assistance provided after he seemed to have been hurt, while he was on the farm doing his work?
See, this farm worker from Punjab's Moga district had moved to Italy, and the report suggests perhaps that he had made an illegal entry into the country. And this entire incident brings the focus back to the exploitation of Indian farm workers in Italy. He was working in a strawberry field, and there is a fruit wrapping machine, the packet through which you wrap in the machine. And while wrapping the fruit packet, his arm came under that machine, that saw machine, which entirely severed his arm, and he was left lying dead with excessive blood having flown out due to that injury. And his employer, despite being aware of it, didn't do anything to bring him to the hospital or for his treatment. And later he was airlifted to the city of Rome, where he was where he died during the treatment. And now this incident has sparked huge this incident has sparked huge protests by the Indian employers there in Italy, and there are many trade unions and employee unions who have protested against it, and that is why the Italian Prime Minister also spoke about it in the parliament. And when he paid homage to Mr. Satnam Singh, the Indian farmer who was killed there, all the members of the House also paid homage. They gave a standing ovation. But the Italian Prime Minister has also promised that proper action or strict action will be taken against the employer and whosoever was guilty for the exploitation of Indian farm worker there in that country.
Right, Ghazali, thank you so much for joining us with all the details of the very tragic story coming out of Italy, where, of course, the Prime Minister is calling it an inhuman act. Moving on to more news now, and it's President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump who will participate in the first televised presidential debate of 2024 elections. The debate hosted by CNN will be the first time that the candidates have been on a debate since 2020. Joe Biden and Donald Trump are expected to face off for about 90 minutes, and possible topics could include immigration, inflation, economy, border security, as well as Trump's felony conviction in a case related to the hush money payment made to adult film star Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election. And while on the other side, the conviction of President's son, Hunter Biden, could also come up during that debate. But what will be interesting is to see Trump's stand on China, the war in Ukraine and Putin. Trump, as we hear, is very keen on lowering the price of oil. Will that really be a game changer is the big question.
The stage is set for the first presidential debate of the 2024 general election. Democratic President Joe Biden and former Republican President Donald Trump will be meeting each other on stage on Thursday at CNN studios in Atlanta, Georgia. Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. did not meet CNN's qualifications for this debate. This is the first time that a sitting president and a former president will be meeting each other on a debate stage. It's also the first time that either Trump or Biden has debated anyone since they last met during the 2020 presidential campaign.
So all eyes on the earliest televised debate in the history of US elections that could perhaps influence the swayable voter. No props or pre-written notes are allowed. So if there's any kind of slip up or fumble by President Biden, that could fuel concerns. Now, allegations of an India's hand as far as the alleged plot to eliminate the Khalistani extremist Pannu figured prominently in recent talks in Delhi between the US National Security Advisor and his Indian counterpart, Ajit Doval. Now, the US has also stated that technology transfer to India on certain key technology items would be impacted by Delhi's relationship with Moscow. My colleague Vishnu Som has the details.
He said India has been responsive and that we seek accountability from the government of India. Now, earlier on, the Indian government had said, and I quote, there is an ongoing investigation of the high-level committee set up by the government of India to look into the security concerns shared by the United States government on networks of organized criminals, terrorists and others. During the visit, the US side also expressed concern on the transfer of some high-tech items to India because of New Delhi's proximity to Moscow. Mr. Campbell said, we are clear about what areas are affected in the relationship. We have expressed some concerns. We are seeking to advance our technology partnerships. It's not surprising where we had different perspectives due to historical ties. Significantly though, the India-US strategic relationship continues to be strong, with progress on a host of areas, from semiconductors to jet engines to drones. The US Deputy Secretary stating that technology is at the heart of our ambitions.
Thank you, Vishnu, for getting us all those details. And switching tracks to the United Kingdom, in the English coastal town of Clacton-on-Sea, many Conservative voters are considering switching to the anti-immigration reform. The UK party in next week's national election, they are fed up with the governing Conservatives and agree with reform's core message that record migration has damaged Britain.
The race to 10 Downing Street is closing in as UK heads to the ballots next week, where Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Conservatives face what various polls are calling electoral extinction, with Labour's Keir Starmer being tipped to become the next Prime Minister. Amid this battle, entered the disruptor, Reform UK's Nigel Farage, further causing trouble for the Tories.
The truth is that between Labour and Conservatives, on economics there are almost no differences. On immigration there are almost no differences. On really big issues, they argue like, they argue as if they're in a cat fight, but the reality is there are no big philosophical fundamental differences at all, and we've injected something new and fresh into this camp.
UK heads to the polls at a time when public dissatisfaction is running high over a host of issues, from the high cost of living and a stagnating economy to a dysfunctional state healthcare system and crumbling infrastructure.
Yeah, and all the promises and nothing ever gets done. You feel like every time they vote, whoever it is, whether it's Labour or Tory, they're just lining their pockets to be, they're earning a lot of money.
It's how it seems. The rich just get richer and everyone else stays as they are.
While record high voter apathy and public dissatisfaction has given Labour a significant lead in the polls, it has also given oxygen to Reform's Farage, who is drawing growing numbers of Conservative voters with his pledge to take our country back.
Well, Nigel Farage is trying to weaponise the issue of immigration in quite a simple way, which is to say he explicitly campaigned in the 2016 referendum saying if we take back control of our borders, we can cut immigration. The reality has been since we left the European Union, with the Tories in charge, net immigration has reached record numbers, over 700,000 in the last year we have the data for.
Farage's Reform UK has a strong stand on immigration, wanting to bar international students from bringing their families, as it says, to boost wages and protect British values. While Farage does not have widespread support and is unlikely to win more than a handful of seats in Parliament, his message is clearly resonating strongly with voters. With Disha Bagchi, Bureau Report, NDTV.
And staying with news from the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Labour Party leader Keir Starmer continue to clash on the issue of migration on Wednesday evening during their final televised debate before the national election. Now, while Sunak called his plan to send more migrants to Rwanda a deterrent, Starmer has said that the plan was not working, as the two politicians vying to become Britain's leader after the election that will be held on the 4th of next month faced off live on the BBC. And there was a loud shouting that could be heard from outside the venue at Nottingham Trent University in central England. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators gathered outside the building before the debate. The host acknowledged that the distraction, which continued as the two politicians traded barbs about ethics, tax and migration, protest is a part of Britain's democracy, is what was said. Now, next week, British voters will elect lawmakers to fill all 650 seats in the House of Commons, and the leader of the party that can command a majority will either, this could be alone or in coalition, will become the Prime Minister. Labour currently has a double-digit lead in opinion polls over the Conservatives, who have been in power for 14 years under 5 different Prime Ministers. And with that, we're sitting the very short break. Back with a whole lot more. To stay with us.
हेलो। लोन मिलेगा या नहीं ये आपके क्रेडिट स्कोर पर डिपेंड करता है। आज ही जाइए पैसाबाजार.com पर और अपना क्रेडिट स्कोर चेक कीजिए फ्री में, क्योंकि लोन की जरूरत किसी को भी कभी भी पड़ सकती है। चल एक्टिंग थोड़ा भेल बनो। पैसाबाजार.com।
Stay informed and entertained with the new and updated NDTV News app. You can watch all our channels live, listen to podcasts, read breaking and exclusive news from around the world and more. Download the NDTV app today and get access to the best journalism and storytelling on your smartphone or tablet. The NDTV app. News that matters to you.
Some people say the metaverse will only be virtual. One day this lecture hall will be made of code. and driverless cars would be trapped in intersections. But even in this maze of the future, you can't wish away health. It's time to become more resilient. "10 years of Banega Swasth India, we have grown and achieved so many milestones. And now I have a plan to beat the urgency, to stop breathing with difficulty, to relieve getting choked with inactivity. Energize our government, our environment, our society, and ourselves. Everyone, everywhere, every day. Banega Swasth India. One world hygiene.
Get ready for the ride of your life. NDTV brings you the NDTV Auto Show with me, Mugdha Mishra. From the fastest supercars to the sleekest new energy vehicle.
That he won't sign into a law finance a bill proposing new taxes that prompted thousands of protesters to storm the parliament the previous day, leaving several people killed as police opened fire. It was the biggest assault on Kenya's government in decades. The government wanted to raise funds to pay off its debt, but people in Kenya have said the bill would have caused more economic pain as millions struggle to get by. Now, Tuesday's chaos led authorities to deploy the military, and the Kenyan president, William Ruto, called protesters' action a treason. Now, he now says that the proposed bill caused widespread dissatisfaction and that he has listened and conceded. It's a major setback for Ruto, who came to power promising to help people in Kenya cope with the rising costs, but has seen much of the country, led by its youth, unite in opposition to his latest attempted reforms.
We have made significant progress in pulling the nation back from the brink of debt distress. Our debt situation is better managed, and our budget now has space for investment and in programs aimed at easing the hardship on vulnerable people and creating opportunities for our young people. And listening keenly to the people of Kenya, who have said loudly that they want nothing to do with this Finance Bill 2024, I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 Finance Bill, and it shall subsequently be withdrawn, and I have agreed with these members that becomes our collective position.
The President has looked at it from the aftermath perspective of the unrest, not the causal root of the unrest. He neglected, his speech neglected addressing the causal root of the unrest, and beyond the criminal justice system as the solution or the fitting intervention to the unrest moving forward. He forgot to address the civil way in which these unrest can be quelled across the country.
Switching tracks now, Bolivian police have arrested the leader of an attempted coup hours after the presidential palace in the capital was stormed by soldiers. Armored vehicles and troops had taken up positions on the Morlillo Square, where key government buildings are located. They all later withdrew. The rebel military leader in charge, this is Juan Jose Zinga, had said that he wanted to restructure democracy and that while he respected the president, for now there would be a change of government. He is now under arrest. The president condemned the coup attempt and calling on the public to organize and mobilize in favor of democracy. In other news, Sri Lanka's President Ranil Wickremesinghe announced a debt restructuring deal with countries including India, France, Japan and China in a televised address to the nation on Wednesday. The agreement marks a key step in the country's economic recovery after defaulting on debt repayment in 2022. Sri Lanka is under an International Monetary Fund bailout program, and the debt treatment deal is expected to reopen the doors to bilateral transactions and the resumption of foreign projects stalled when the island nation defaulted. Sri Lanka declared bankruptcy in April of 2022 and suspended repayments on some $83 billion in domestic and foreign loans amid a severe foreign exchange crisis that led to a severe shortage of essentials such as food, medicine, fuel, as well as cooking gas and hours-long power cuts.
අද පෙරවරුවේ පැරිස් නුවරදී ලංකාවේ ප්‍රධාන නිල දෙපාර්ශ්වික ණය හිමියන් සමග ණය පිටුවගත කිරීමේ සාකච්ඡාව අවසන් කරමින් නිල ණය හිමියන්ගේ කමිටුව සමග අවසන් එකඟත්වයකට එළඹුණා. ඒ වගේම චීන එක්සිම් බැංකුව සමගත් අප අද බීජිං නුවර අවසන් එකඟත්වයකට පැමිණියා. මීට අදාළ වන විධිමත් ක්‍රියා පටිපාටි මේ වන විට සිදු කෙරෙමින් පවතිනවා. රටට සැබවින් ආදරය කරන අයට මේක සුබ ආරංචියක්. ශ්‍රී ලංකාවන් මේ එකතාවයන් සමග විදේශ රටවල සියලු දෙපාර්ශ්වික ණයවාරික ගෙවීම 2028 වසර දක්වා කල් දමා ගැනීමට අපට හැකි වේවි. ඉන්පසු සහනදායි කොන්දේසි මත සීලු ණය ගෙවා අවසන් කරන්නට 2043 දක්වා දිගු කාලයක් ලබා ගන්නටත් අපට අවස්ථාව ලැබේ.
And one of the largest global credit rating agencies, Fitch Ratings, has downgraded the Maldives rating this year to a CCC plus rating. Earlier, Maldives had been downgraded to CCC rating during the COVID-19 pandemic. However, for the past 3 years, Maldives has maintained B rating, and now the agency decreased the rating due to the downward trend in the Maldives economy and increase in the foreign debts together with the low foreign reserves. While this is Fitch Ratings project that the incumbent government will decrease foreign loans, they add that Maldives faces significant challenges in debt repayment in 2025 and 2026. And switching tracks now to Sunita Williams, who is stuck in space. The Indian origin astronaut Sunita Williams and we also have Butch Wilmore. They are stuck on the International Space Station after glitches were found in the Boeing spaceship they travelled in, earlier set to return on the 26th of this month. Originally slated to spend 8 days on the orbiting space lab. Now the astronauts reached ISS on the 6th of June. 20 days later, NASA and Boeing leadership are still adjusting the return. As far as the return to Earth of the Starliner crew, a flight test spacecraft is concerned, which suffered a small helium system leak on its way. The Boeing Starliner, which is on its maiden trip, has been facing a series of glitches that had delayed its launch twice over. The constant delays that one has seen have raised doubts, but what aggravates their trouble is the fact that allegations that the issues with the spaceship were known beforehand. And magnum opus Kalki 289880 his theatres today. It stars Deepika Padukone, Prabhas, Amitabh Bachchan as well as Kamal Haasan. The most expensive Indian film ever made, written and directed by the National Award winner Nag Ashwini. Kalki is the first Indian film which will be screened across all 210 IMAX screens. It's releasing in with 2D as well as 3D versions in Hindi, Tamil as well as Telugu. It could be the third Indian film behind RRR and Bahubali 2 to take the opening of 200 crores at the worldwide box office. And with that, we're slipping into a very short break. Thank you so much for your time.
लोन मिलेगा या नहीं ये आपके क्रेडिट स्कोर पे डिपेंड करता है। तो आज ही अपना क्रेडिट स्कोर चेक करें फ्री में पैसाबाजार.com पर। लोन की जरूरत कभी भी किसी को भी पड़ सकती है।
ठीक से एक्टिंग नहीं।
पैसाबाजार.com।
Stay informed and entertained with the new and updated NDTV News app. You can watch all our channels live, listen to podcasts, read breaking and exclusive news from around the world and more. Download the NDTV app today and get access to the best journalism and storytelling on your smartphone or tablet. The NDTV app. News that matters to you.
This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Hello, Moto.